Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Leaders from around San Diego County came together today to focus on one problem, homelessness. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. 18 mayors gathered in Solana Beach to share what they are doing to solve the issue. KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne says one of the big topics was how so many cities can work together.
We're here at the Loma Santa Fe Country Club, where San Diego County mayors all the way from Oceanside to Chula Vista gathered to discuss a region-wide issue, homelessness. The event brought together 18 city mayors to discuss what their cities are doing to combat the issue. Here's Oceanside Deputy Mayor Ryan Keim and National City Mayor Ron Morrison.
Just when you get down face to face and you talk to someone from La Mesa or Imperial Beach or National City up in Oceanside, we can be on the opposite side of the county. We have similar problems, and we all need to know how we can help each other and how we can be more cohesive.
Like just a couple weeks ago, just by the time we start getting things cleaned up, boom, here comes in a whole new wave of homeless because of Comic-Con, and they got pushed out of downtown San Diego, and then we take on somebody else's problem all over again. We're a small city, very limited resources, and yet we're being asked to take on these huge problems for other people.
And with the state and Supreme Court giving cities more power to expand encampment bans and soon conservatorships, their urgency for resources and cities to work together grows. Here's Donnie D., the CEO of the San Diego Rescue Mission.
I do believe at some point, somewhere down the road, we're going to have the relationships where what's going to come out of this is actually an 18-city strategic plan instead of 18 individual plans. That's what we have right now. And that makes sense because they get elected to think about their city. So we've got to continue to communicate to them that as long as you just think about your city, we're never going to change the state of homelessness, because homelessness knows no zip code.
And what we heard from today is that we can expect more and more San Diego cities to take up homeless encampment bans and continue stretching already thin resources. Reporting from Solana Beach, Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
When Governor Gavin Newsom signed Senate Bill 43 in 2023, he gave counties 2 years to implement the updated conservatorship laws aimed at tackling addiction and mental health issues in the homeless population. However, only 2 counties have begun implementation so far. KPBS health reporter Heidi DeMarco says San Diego County is actively preparing to begin its rollout.
Before SB 43, conservatorships were for those unable to meet their own basic needs, like food, shelter, or clothing. The 2023 bill broadens this to include those unable to ensure their safety or medical care. It extends conservatorships to include substance abuse disorders as well as mental health issues. Dr. Luke Bergman heads the San Diego County's Behavioral Health Services Department.
And these are 5150 holds, so we anticipate maybe as many as thousands of additional holds being applied to people every year.
Bergman says law enforcement, clinical and policy experts met to develop training and education that is already underway.
Collectively, a new training was designed and developed, really based in scenarios. What kinds of things are we going to see? And what kinds of scenarios will we be needing to be responsive to?
He says so far, over 100 peace officers have been trained on the new criteria.
We've got to prepare them for thinking differently about under what circumstances it's appropriate to apply a hold. We've got to help them understand how to be responsive to some pretty complicated statutory language in real time, and of course under what will inevitably be somewhat messy real-life circumstances.
Bergman says the county is launching a program called SD Relay in October to better connect addiction treatment with emergency departments.
Peer support providers actually going into emergency departments to engage with people who are brought on 5150s with substance use disorder. Engagement and the establishment of trust and some kind of relational rapport are so critical.
He says the county currently has 78 detox beds for Medi-Cal patients and needs more. Plans are underway to add 21 more beds, increasing capacity by nearly 30%. Additionally, he says a new substance abuse treatment facility will add around 100 more beds.
And so we're making, I think, really significant strides. All of these will come online before January 1st, 2025.
They have also just broken ground on the county's 7th Crisis Stabilization Unit in El Cajon. The units offer an alternative drop-off location for individuals detained under 5150 holds. Bergman says that although SB 43 is challenging,
but it also comes with this pretty remarkable opportunity for us to make really punctuated progress toward more integrated care.
Bergman says the county is collaborating with the state to create new treatment settings and a system that better integrates mental health and addiction care. Heidi DeMarco, KPBS News.
Jumping ahead to tonight, we're dropping down to a low of 68. Not too bad temperature-wise, but we are still tracking some low clouds there near the coast. So take it easy on the roads, especially if you're out late or early. You may run into some lowered visibility. Though we are tracking chances for a thunderstorm, so we'll tell you which area is most at risk and how long the rain will stick around.
A rough start to the week on Wall Street. The Dow fell more than 1,000 points, marking its biggest daily percentage loss in 2 years. It comes as fears over U.S. economic slowdown send shockwaves through the global markets. Lee Waldman explains what's making investors nervous and what it could mean for you.
Panic at the stock exchange Monday. With markets around the world dipping sharply overnight, the Dow opened down more than 1,000 points, setting off alarm bells.
Uncertainty is our worst enemy, and panic is the ultimate uncertainty out there.
Investors appear anxious over the U.S. Federal Reserve's decision not to trim interest rates last week as it waits for inflation to fall further. But following Friday's disappointing July jobs report showing the U.S. unemployment rate ticking up to its highest level since October 2021, Fed Chair Jerome Powell's patience could be backfiring.
My guess is they're feeling a bit remorse that they didn't pull the trigger on that rate cut in July. That doesn't mean we necessarily will go into recession, but I think the financial markets do have it right.
Some traders are betting the U.S. central bank will be forced into a rare emergency rate cut, though some analysts say while this is possible, it may not be likely.
In all likelihood, the Fed wants to stick to its predetermined calendar.
The Fed still has a lot to consider before it slashes rates, according to many experts, and it's still too soon to tell if the economy is simply cooling as planned or headed for a deep freeze.
We've had some disappointing economic data that is worrisome. That's far from a calamity. It's far from giving us proof that the economy is in contraction mode, broadly speaking.
In New York, I'm Lee Waldman reporting.
A 2-year-old lawsuit accusing the former chair of the San Diego County Democratic Party of sexual assault has been withdrawn. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says the accuser has recanted.
2 years ago, Oscar Rendon publicly accused his ex-boyfriend, Will Rodriguez Kennedy, of having sex with him while he was too drunk to consent. The accusations were detailed in a lawsuit that has now been withdrawn. Rodriguez Kennedy has always maintained his innocence, but he stepped down from his position as chair of the county's Democratic Party in May of 2022. Last week, Rendon and Rodriguez Kennedy issued a joint statement saying, quote, "Recently, we have had the opportunity to meet and discuss a misunderstanding that caused us both a lot of pain. It is unfortunate that certain political actors took advantage of this misunderstanding in an effort to damage William's reputation and career. With this behind us, we are wishing each other the very best as we move on with our lives. William and I would like everyone to respect our peace and privacy moving forward." Rodriguez Kennedy still works in politics, serving as a constituent services representative for Congressman Scott Peters. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Vice President Kamala Harris is making the biggest decision of her 2-week-old presidential campaign. She is expected to choose a running mate and introduce the new Democratic ticket to voters in several key battleground states this week. Washington correspondent Julia Benbrook takes a closer look at the top contenders.
Vice President Kamala Harris interviewed some of her potential VP picks on Sunday. 2 of those top contenders from battleground states, including former Pennsylvania Attorney General and current Governor Josh Shapiro.
The vice president has a deeply personal decision to make. She will make the right decision for her and for the country.
And Arizona Senator Mark Kelly, a retired Navy captain and NASA astronaut. Kelly represents a state President Joe Biden won by just over 10,000 votes in 2020.
Donald Trump wants to drag us back to, his prior administration, which was a bad deal for Americans.
Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota, a former high school teacher and congressman, also on the short list. He was one of the first to refer to the top of the GOP ticket as weird, a talking point that has gained traction in recent weeks.
I'm just am who I am and put it out there. I think this is going to be really important, that the best decision and the best for the vice president to make that.
In the final days of the accelerated vice presidential search, Harris was most concerned with what one source close to the process described as the 3 C's: competence, chemistry, and core values.
At the end of the day, it will be who she has good chemistry with and feels like I can lead, I can run a campaign in 95 days and win.
Harris and her VP pick will hit the ground running, crisscrossing the country to visit battleground states. The first stop is Tuesday in Philadelphia. Reporting in Washington, I'm Julia Benbrook.
Chula Vista has been towing more and more cars for being parked on the street for too long. KPBS South Bay reporter Corey Suzuki says some advocates are worried that this crackdown is hurting one of the region's growing communities, which is seniors.
She would get in that car and it would be a grin.
Daryl Ward still remembers the day his mom bought her first brand new car, a gleaming silver Buick.
I was with her in the passenger seat, and there was this air of happiness, complete, utter love.
That was back around 2010. Since then, that car has taken Ward and his mom, Irma Courier, all the way across the country to Florida and back. Courier has taken it on drives up north to play slot machines in Reno, and to the local bowling alley, where she used to play almost every day. That's all to say, this car has been really good for her. Courier is 92 now, and being able to get around has helped her stay independent. This past April, though, all of that changed. Ward and Courier live together in an apartment in Chula Vista. Usually, they just park her car on the street, since it has disabled parking plates.
I never worried about that until one morning I went out there to check on it, and it was gone.
Courier's car had been towed. The Chula Vista Police Department had taken it for violating the city's 72-hour law, which makes it illegal to park on the street in the same spot for more than 3 days.
I was shocked. My heart, not for me, but for my mom. I knew that this was gonna be an incident that would be close to her heart.
Ward and Courier had to pay almost $1,000 to get the car back. They didn't have the money, so they used a credit card to cover the costs. Now, Courier is still paying that debt off and is considering filing for bankruptcy. Chula Vista has been towing more and more cars every year for being parked too long. That's according to city data obtained by KPBS. Those numbers dipped slightly when the pandemic hit, but last year the city hit a new record, seizing more than 550 cars in 1 year. Advocates for older people worry that some of these towing practices in Chula Vista and other major cities are hurting seniors, who are much more likely to have disabilities, and many of whom live by themselves. John Acosta is a local advocate for seniors' rights. He points out that older people often have to take long trips to the hospital, for example.
By the time they come out, one of the things they're not going to worry about is their car. They worry about the medicine, they worry about maybe getting well, but they're not going to be concerned about the car.
Their car might have been sitting in an impound lot for days by the time they get out, Acosta says, and they might have to pay some significant fees to get it back. A number of cities in California have been criticized for their towing practices in recent years. Researchers have found that major cities like San Diego and San Francisco frequently conduct what they call poverty tows, seizing cars for minor violations that don't pose any major threat to public safety. These tows they found disproportionately hurt poor residents, Black and Latino communities, and unhoused people. In many cases, the owners can't afford the tickets and fees and end up losing their cars altogether. In Chula Vista, the police say the reason they're towing more cars is that they're receiving more complaints. Rusty Ree is a traffic lieutenant with the department.
We're not seeking out, the elderly or people who are, in poverty or anything like that. We're dealing with, neighborhoods, whether they be poor neighborhoods or neighborhoods that are, a little more well off, that are complaining about people leaving their cars on the street.
Ree says their process is designed to give residents a fair warning. The department will leave a notice on the car and give residents 3 days to move it. If they do end up towing it, then they'll let the owner know by sending a letter. Still, Ree acknowledges that the city doesn't change its approach at all when it comes to cars with disabled parking placards. Acosta, the senior advocate, argues that that should change. He says the city should give owners with disabled plates extra time to respond to a warning, or use the address on file to do a wellness check before towing those cars. Other cities like San Francisco have also explored other policy changes, like sending owners a text if their car is about to be towed. Chula Vista City Council member Jose Preciado says they might need to explore some of those options.
I think we do need to take some proactive steps in the case of working with our seniors, and particularly if they're disabled or we want to support them continuing to be and live in their independent lives.
Ward and Courier both agree that the city's approach needs to change. That $1,000 bill has completely destabilized things for them. Ward is 72 and also retired, and the two of them both live on fixed incomes, which means it's already been tricky to cover rising rents and medical bills.
That literally was a change of life for both of us. Mom, we ended up using credit cards. It's over $1,000, and in doing that, we could never recover.
Ward blames himself for not understanding the law better, but he thinks the city should do more to see things from a senior's point of view.
That's common sense. That's not writing a ticket. That's being part of the community.
Courier does have her car back, at least. Because she and Ward still can't move it every 3 days, they've decided to leave it with Ward's daughter up near Temecula until they decide what to do next. They talked about selling it. Ward thinks that would probably be smarter, but he says they just can't let it go. Too many memories. In Chula Vista, Corey Suzuki, KPBS News.
COVID-19 cases are on the rise again. The CDC reports emergency department visits linked to the virus have been increasing for weeks. And the most recent data shows the level of COVID-19 in wastewater across the country is high. Mandy Gaither has more on the latest variant that's spreading and when an updated vaccine is expected to be out.
Right now, it's the most common COVID-19 variant in the U.S. KP3, a descendant of the Omicron variant, is spreading across the country. And if it's been a while since you've been vaccinated, you may be vulnerable.
Immunity, we're learning, lasts around 4 to 6 months. So keep that number in the back of your mind. That is probably the reason that we're seeing a summer surge as the protection wears off from the last set of shots.
The 2024-25 COVID-19 vaccines, expected to be out this fall, will target the JN1 strain. Because it too is in the Omicron family, experts expect it to provide protection against strains currently circulating. The CDC recommends everyone ages 6 months and older receive an updated vaccine to protect against getting severely sick from COVID-19, especially those who are most vulnerable, including those who are immunocompromised, have underlying health conditions, certain disabilities, and seniors.
Also, there's been a lot of discussion recently about a combination shot, COVID and flu. Maybe you've heard about this. It would be COVID and flu in the same shot. Moderna, the pharma company, had some positive trial results with that combination earlier this summer, but we're learning it's not going to be ready for this fall.
The CDC says it is safe to receive the COVID-19 and flu vaccines at the same time. Experts recommend you get both before the end of October. For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
The CDC says as of mid-May, less than 23% of U.S. adults reported having received an updated COVID vaccine for the previous season, and less than 15% of children were reported to be up to date with their COVID vaccination. Spending time out in the elements can be hazardous if you're not prepared. Some popular trails are closed due to extreme heat, and hikers at Cowles Mountain were there early today to avoid the peak temperatures. First responders at Cal Fire recommended that people hike in groups. They wear their loose clothing and have a charged phone in case they need to call for help.
I want to beat the heat and get as many as I can before the sun starts to come in and the heat starts to sort of increase. So today was just one of those days where I thought I want an additional challenge. So heat on.
2 trails in East County, Mount Gower and El Capitan, were both closed today due to the heat. And just yesterday, 6 hikers were rescued from Three Sisters Falls Trailhead in Julian. Cal Fire says they were on a trail that was closed.
Well, I want to start you off with your weather headlines, kind of the big things we need to know as we head throughout this week. It's been a hot start, and while we're going to continue hanging on to that heat here over the next few days, though as we do head into Tuesday, we are going to see an increase in monsoonal moisture and the influences it's going to be bringing here across parts of Southern California. With that, we are still tracking some patchy low clouds, especially there near the coast over the next coming days. So again, take it easy. Stay weather aware if you are out early or if you are out late. Though with that increase in monsoonal moisture, we are tracking slight chances for storms this week, especially across more mountainous terrain further east into the deserts. Tonight, we're dropping down to a low of 63 in Oceanside, San Diego, a little warmer at 68. Though as we venture further east, Ramona, you're dropping down to a low of 64. Mount Laguna warmer at 70, and Borrego Springs dropping down to lows in the 80s. Though with that heat, of course, we do have a few weather alerts out. We do have heat advisories here across inland areas that does go through Tuesday night. And we even have excessive heat warnings that affect here across our desert terrain. Borrego Springs, Coachella Valley, heads up. It's going to be quite toasty here, especially as we head throughout the afternoon tomorrow. Look at where our highs go. Even inland, Ramona, you're at 100. Borrego Springs, 112. Mount Laguna sitting in the low 80s. Not too far off in San Diego with a high of 79. Oceanside, you're reaching highs in the 80s as well with a high of 82. Now, I did say that slight increase for chances, at least for thunderstorms, does start to roll through again as we do head throughout the afternoon, evening into Tuesday. Similar story Wednesday. You'll note it's not a washout, but over these next few days, we could sneak a thunderstorm in there that could produce some gustier winds at times. Along the coast here, temperatures staying in the 80s, even through the middle of the week, not dropping too much. I would say overall pretty steady here, even as we head into the weekend, though that humidity does start to increase as well as we head towards the weekend. Areas further inland, well, we're staying in the 90s there through Wednesday, not dropping off too much, though. You're still in the upper 80s here heading into the later half of the week. We are tracking, again, that chance for a few afternoon thunderstorms there over the next few days. Those chances don't quite go away. Highs, though, will dip in the mountains back down to the 70s, staying there even through Saturday. Hot, 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 even as we head into Tuesday. Those temperatures across the deserts will drop just a few degrees. Still pretty hot, though, with plenty of sunshine heading into the weekend. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Bree Guy.
I'm Amna Navaz. Tonight on the NewsHour, a judge rules Google is operating a monopoly, a major blow to the tech giant. That's coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
San Diego's animal shelters have been full throughout the year as the cost of care and supplies rise. KPBS reporter Katie Anastas says the San Diego Humane Society's pet food pantry is seeing higher demand and fewer donations.
Jesus Altamirano has been getting pet food at the pantry for 2 years. On a recent Tuesday, he left with a toy and food for his dachshund mix, Chloe.
They help a lot. They help with the treats. Sometimes they help with the wet food too.
Pet owners can stop by the Humane Society's campuses to get a bag of dog or cat food, and demand has been rising.
These locations on Neo Campus is by far the busiest location, so we are able to serve about, on average, 200 people every single day. So between the 4 locations that we are serving about 300 people each day.
They've also been getting fewer donations. Gonzalez says they desperately need dry dog and cat food and wet dog food. Keeping the pantry going is especially important as San Diego's animal shelters remain full.
Summer's always the highest capacity of the whole year, but this year's been different because we've been really at high capacity the entire time, winter, fall, spring, and now in the summer. We have about 2,000 animals in care at all of our campuses, highest number of dogs we've ever had in our 144-year existence, and frankly, not enough adopters.
The industry website OneVet surveyed more than 1,000 dog owners in June 2023. They found that 1 in 6 had given up a dog in the previous year, with nearly a third citing the inability to afford dog food or veterinary care.
We spend so much of our time bringing pets into new people's homes, and we want those pets, once they get there, to be able to stay there forever.
The Humane Society's pet pantries are open from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Tuesday through Sunday. Donations can be brought to the pantries or purchased through the Humane Society's Amazon wish list. Katie Anastas, KPBS News.
And here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On NPR's Morning Edition, the National Park Service wants to allow rock climbers to establish permanent safety devices on routes in wilderness areas. But there is debate over whether this violates the Federal Wilderness Act. And from farmers markets to community gardens, KPBS Midday Edition is highlighting efforts across San Diego to prioritize food access and healthy neighborhoods. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.